This podcast is produced by the Harwood Productions Podcast Network. To learn more about the network and to find more of our shows, visit us online at www.harwoodpodcast.com. This episode of Sketchup, a 3D Toolbox, is brought to you by 3D Connection, makers of the Space Navigator. To learn more about them, visit their website at www.3dconnection.com. Hey there everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Sketchup, a 3D Toolbox. I'm Cameron Harris, and this is episode number 36. Today we're going to start a new project series. We're going to actually start modeling a backyard. Now we're going to do everything from the patio, which we're going to work on today, to things like the terrain and the plants, things we haven't really covered before. Should be pretty fun. Let's get started. So to start our backyard project, I've created a blank project in SketchUp, and as usual we have our little man right here. I'm just going to select him and delete him so we have a completely blank project. And the first thing that you want to do when you're modeling a landscape is determine the size of the lot that you're working on. So the lot is basically like the plot of ground that your landscaping is going to cover. So in this case, what I've done is I've actually gone ahead and measured the lot size of the backyard that I'm going to be modeling, because this is a real backyard that I'm going to be basically duplicating here. And so to do that, I'm just going to switch to the rectangle tool. I'm going to go ahead and click at the center. So when it snaps to where all these axes intersect, I get that little golden dot. I can just click there and then pull this out like this. And now I'm going to go ahead and type in some dimensions. So the long side is going to be 64.5 feet. So I'll do 64.5 and then apostrophe for feet, comma, so to switch to the shorter side, 38 feet. Apostrophe, and hit enter. And now you can see I've got this rectangle right here, which is purple. So I'm going to right click on it and choose reverse faces to make it white. Now, the reason that you want to go ahead and make a rectangle to work off of is, think of this as if you were modeling a house. This is like your floor. Even though we're doing landscaping, we still need to have a solid ground, because even though it looks like, you know, this virtual world that SketchUp has created for us, even though it looks like it's got a blue sky and green ground, that's just a background image. This green ground doesn't actually have, you know, mass in SketchUp. It's not actually real. So we need to create a physically real face in SketchUp to work off of. So this is going to be our entire backyard. It's all going to fit on this rectangle. Now, if you're going to model a backyard or some kind of lot that is actually real and you want to recreate it, or not even recreate it, but just recreate the actual lot so that you can play around with landscaping and maybe change it a little bit, always make sure that you take some good measurements. So in this case, I just took one big tape measure and measured lengthwise across the entire lot and then widthwise. Today, we're just going to be concentrating on one aspect of the backyard, and that is the patio. Now, the patio is going to be right in this area, this kind of quadrant right here. And the patio is made up of brick pavers that are conveniently exactly 1 foot square. And that's really, really handy because it makes it very easy to model and measure when it's just 1 foot square. It's not some weird in-between measurement like, 10.5 inches or something like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start modeling that. Now, the first thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and model a paver. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go off of this face that I've created. I'm going to go off to the side. That way I'm not, worrying about my pavers intersecting with the face or anything like that. And I'm going to use the rectangle tool, and I'm going to draw a very simple 1 foot by 1 foot square. There we go. So I've got that, and now I'm going to raise this, use the push-pull tool, and extrude it into 3D 1.5 inches. And there we go. Now, we could just leave this like this. We could just, line a bunch of these up together and make our patio. But I'm going to show you how you can add a little bit more detail, because a brick like this isn't always, a perfect rectangle like this. Oftentimes, it has slightly beveled edges on the top, and we're going to go ahead and do that. That'll add some really nice detail. So the first thing I want to do is I'm actually going to use the follow me tool to create this beveled edge. And what I'm going to do is I need to basically draw a line right here where I want my beveled edge to be. And to do that, I'm going to go ahead and just create some guides. So I'll switch to the tape measure tool, T key for the tape measure tool, and pull down a guide line from this top line here and pull it straight down. And I'm just going to type in 0.1. It's going to be subtle. So that's just 1/10 of an inch. And I'll do the same thing there. And then, just zoom in right here a little bit. There we go. This is a very small detail, but you'll see it actually makes a pretty big difference visually. I'm going to switch to the line tool, and right where this guide line and the top of my paver intersect, I'm going to click there, and then I'm going to click over here to make my line. And then I'm going to just select these guide lines here and delete them. Don't need them anymore. So that is where my beveled edge is going to be. And you can kind of see if I switch to the push-pull tool and push it back, you can see that that's what it's going to look like. But I want this to not just be on this side, I want it to go on all 4 sides and have beveled corners and everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the follow me tool, which if you don't remember the follow me tool, I'll give you a quick refresher course on how to use it. The first thing you need to do is select the lines that represent the path that you want to extrude this shape along, which in this case is all around the top edge of this paver. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this line. Oops, there we go. And because we've split this into bits and pieces, we need to also make sure we select this little bit there. Good. Select the other line, and then just these other 2 lines here. So you can see that now we've got the lines selected all around the rim here, one uninterrupted line. We're going to switch to the follow me tool, which is over in the tools palette, and it looks like this right here. Going to choose that tool, and you can see it deselects our lines, but that's no big deal. That's supposed to happen. It now has that path, and whatever shape we click on next will be extruded along that path, which in this case we want to click on this little bevel edge face that we created right here. Click once, and you can see that it's extruded all along the edges, done some very nice beveled corners. And we could have done this by hand, but the follow me tool makes it way, way easier and way faster. So there we go, that's fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and triple click on this paver and make it a group. Now, I could make it a component because we are going to be duplicating these, but I'm not going to want to change. I know I'm not going to really want to change these afterwards. The only thing I'm going to be doing is texturing them, and I want to texture them all differently. So I'm going to make it a group, that way I can change. Because remember, with a component, you change one instance of a component, it changes all of them. But a group, every time you duplicate it, it's its own unique individual object. So I've got my first paver there. And the next thing I want to do is I need to position it as the starting paver for my patio to kind of, then duplicate it out. So I need to, basically, this paver is going to be the corner, the starting corner of my patio, and then I'll duplicate it out from there. So I need to figure out the starting point for my patio, some kind of a corner. And in this case, because the patio is going to be going right around here, I took some measurements of this yard and figured out the distance between the edge of the lot and the first side of the patio on 2 sides. If that makes no sense at all, let me show it to you visually. It makes a lot more sense then. I'm going to switch to the tape measure tool, and I'm going to pull out a guide from this edge of my lot here. Now I measured, and the patio starts after 6 feet and 2 inches away from that side. So I'm going to type in 6 apostrophe and then 2 for 2 inches. And this edge right here, this is where my patio starts in this direction. And I'm going to do the same thing. I took another measurement from this edge of my lot, and this is 4.5 feet. So I'm going to type in 4.5 feet. There we go. So now this corner right here, where these 2 lines intersect, this is where the start of my patio is, and then it expands out from there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my paver here, switch to the move tool, grab it by this corner here, and position it so that that corner lines up with those guidelines there. So that is the starting point of my patio. And now I want to extend this brick out. I want to duplicate these pavers out this way to make the full patio. Now, the patio itself is 17 feet by 14 feet. And this is where having these pavers be exactly 1 foot square is really handy, because I know I just need to duplicate this paver out so that it's 17 wide, and then just duplicate that out so that it's 14 wide, because 1 paver equals 1 foot. So it's very, very easy. And now I'm going to show you another technique that we covered a while ago, but we haven't used it in a while. And that is that when you duplicate something like this, like a paver, you switch to the Move tool, hit the Option key to make it, instead of moving just this paver, we're going to move a copy of it. Grab it by this corner. Now we've got a copy of the paver. Line it up like that. Boom. Now, we could continue to do this manually for a while, but that is going to take a lot of time. So what we're going to do instead is we are going to, without deselecting or switching tools or doing anything, we're going to go ahead and use the multiply function in Sketchup, which, once you've duplicated something and moved it slightly, using the Move Duplicate tool, if you type in X, or the multiply symbol, on your keyboard, and you can see down in the length box it says X, we then say how many times we want to multiply this out. Now this is kind of weird. You would think, oh well, we want to do this 17 times. Not so, actually, because remember, we're multiplying. We've already got 2 of these pavers down, so it gets a little bit complicated, because if we were to say multiply by 1, nothing would happen, because if you multiply something by 1, you don't actually change the number. But if you multiply by 2, then you get 1 extra. So we basically want to multiply, if my math is correct, and it may not be, but if my math is correct, we want to multiply this 15 times. So I'll go ahead and say times 15. And you can see it's multiplied these pavers out perfectly. And now I'm going to go ahead and count them and make sure I have 17. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. No, not quite. So I should have multiplied by 16 in that case. It takes trial and error, because it's really kind of tricky to figure that out and predict how it's going to work. But as long as I don't deselect or switch tools or do anything else, I mean, I can move around in my model, but don't change tools or select anything. I can change it from 15. I can just type in times 16, and then it adds 1 more. So that's perfect. Now I've got 17 of these pavers all lined up like this. The next step is I could then just proceed to duplicate these guys out and just keep on filling them in, but that would take forever. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to select all of these pavers by drawing a marquee around them. Drag from left to right, fully surround all those pavers. Got all those selected. And now we're going to do the same thing we did before, where we multiply using the Move tool, hit the Option key to copy, drag it out like that. And you can see this works even with ungrouped objects that you just selected multiples of. And in this case, I'm going to go ahead and say I want to get 14 of these. So if my math is right this time, I should say times 13. And let's see what kind of a grid we've got. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Beautiful. So that is what my patio is going to look like. And you can see that having those beveled edges, when you kind of get in nice and close like this, you can see that the detail that adds is really very nice. And now we're going to go ahead and kind of finish up this patio by texturing it. But before we do that, I want to thank the people who make this show possible. 3D Connection. These guys make the Space Navigator, which is, I'm sure you know by now, the best way to navigate in SketchUp. If you haven't tried one yet, you have got to try this thing, because it is unbelievable how intuitive and how easy it makes modeling in SketchUp. And I want to point out that this thing is completely customizable. You can actually go into your preferences for the driver and change the speed and the sensitivity of all of the different ways you can use the navigator. So you can make it so that when you pan left and right, it goes a little bit faster, or when you zoom or tilt, it goes a little bit faster, or when you spin or roll, it goes slower. You can do anything. You can even reverse it, kind of like a video game where you reverse the direction you move the analog sticks. It's exactly like that. And it just makes modeling a joy. Be sure to check out their website at www.3dconnection.com, and be sure to check out the Space Navigator when you do. I want to thank them so much for sponsoring this episode of Sketchup, a 3D toolbox. Now you can see that back here on our patio, everything right now is white because that's what SketchUp makes all of its default objects. When you create something, it's white by default. But we want to go ahead and texture these guys in so we can kind of finish up the patio and start bringing some color into our model. Now, what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to actually, instead of just making these all the same color, I'm actually going to create a kind of a pattern using red and gray pavers. So the first thing I want to do is I want to switch to the bucket tool, B for the bucket tool. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and choose a nice gray. Maybe switch to the color wheel and kind of adjust the color, and I'll try clicking on one of these pavers. Remember, because each one of these pavers is an individual group, just clicking on one will color the entire thing. So that's very nice. That's a little bit dark. I'm going to go ahead and lighten it up a little bit. That looks nice. And I'm actually going to go ahead and just color all of these. And you will have to click on each one individually, but it's really not that big of a deal. And then what I'm going to do is once I get all of these colored in, I'm going to go ahead and go back in with the red and color in some red bricks and give it a nice pattern. So I finished coloring all of my pavers gray. It took a little bit of time, but not too bad. And I've gone ahead and selected a nice red color for some of my bricks. It's kind of a little bit of a desaturated red that's a little bit lighter. And I'm going to go ahead and start coloring in some of these bricks that red color. And I'm actually going to make a nice pattern that the real version of this patio actually has. You can do whatever pattern you want, but mine kind of goes something like this. Like that. And then after that, it just kind of goes around. And on each of the corners, you just kind of duplicate it. This is a really nice pattern. It's actually a quite simple pattern, but it's deceptively simple. It looks very cool. And then I'm just going to fill in the gaps on the edges, make a nice border. There we go. And that kind of makes the patio pop quite a bit. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, again, just draw a marquee around the patio. Go a little bit bigger. There we go. So I've got all the pavers selected, and I'm going to go ahead and right-click on them and make them a group. And there we go. So now we've got a very nice patio. And you can see the detail that we put into it with those beveled edges and the different color patterns. It really makes it look very, very nice. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Sketchup, a 3D Toolbox. Next time, we're going to continue working on the backyard with things like the plants and the terrain, some pretty cool stuff. But until then, be sure to visit our website at www.harwoodpodcast.com. I'll have the show notes for this episode, as well as all kinds of great stuff, including lesson files from previous episodes. And if you have any questions or comments for me about the show, be sure to send me an email at cameron@harwoodpodcast.com. Until next time, I'll just say goodbye and good modeling.